Welcome back to Jack and Rex Tales. Sit with this one. It's gonna stay with you. The door to Rusty's bar slammed open so hard the windows rattled in their old wooden frames. The jukebox kept playing, Merle Haggard, something about hard times and harder roads. But every head in that warm, dim room turned toward the doorway at exactly the same moment. Every conversation died, every coffee cup lowered, every pair of eyes landed on the entrance and stayed there. Because standing in the doorway, small and trembling against the cold November wind pouring in from outside, was a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 7. She wore a red jacket 2 sizes too big. Her hair was tangled, her shoes were untied. Her face was streaked with tears that had dried once and then come again, pale lines carved through dirty cheeks. Her small chest heaved like she had been running hard, not just from down the street, but from something she had been running from for a very long time. The truckers at the bar looked at each other. The bartender reached for a rag he didn't need. 2 women in a corner booth leaned together and whispered behind their hands. Nobody moved. The little girl's eyes swept the room once, quickly, desperately, like a person searching for solid ground in the middle of deep, dark water. She didn't stop at the truckers. She didn't stop at the bartender. She didn't stop at the 2 women already watching her with soft, worried faces. Her eyes found the far corner of the room. A man sitting alone at a small table. Broad shoulders curved inward like a mountain that had weathered one too many storms. A weathered face, silver threading through a short dark beard, large hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. Eyes that were somewhere far away, even as they stared at the wall directly in front of him. And lying at his boots, calm and still on the worn wooden floor, was a large German shepherd, enormous, quiet, with amber eyes that missed absolutely nothing. The little girl walked straight toward that corner. Every person in that bar watched her cross the floor. Nobody stopped her. Nobody followed her. Maybe because something in the way she moved told them this child already knew exactly where she needed to go. She stopped in front of the man. The dog lifted his great head first. Then the man looked up. And the little girl whispered 2 words that fell into the silence of that room like stones dropped into still water. Please help. His name was Jack Thompson, 50 years old, retired United States Army infantry, 2 tours in Afghanistan, a Bronze Star for valor, a Purple Heart for the shrapnel that still lived in his left leg and woke him up on cold mornings with a pain he had long since stopped complaining about. He had seen things over there that no amount of time could fully erase. Villages reduced to rubble, families torn apart by forces bigger than any of them, brothers in arms here one morning and gone by afternoon. He had held men as they left this world, whispering their wives' names, their children's names into the dust and smoke of places most Americans would never find on a map. And then he had come home. He came home to a woman named Margaret, his wife of 18 years, who had kept every one of his letters, who had slept on his side of the bed when he was deployed just to feel closer to him, who had held him through the nightmares without ever asking him to explain them. And then 5 years ago, cancer had taken her, quietly, the way it always comes for the good ones. Too soon, too fast, without any warning that could have possibly prepared him. After Margaret died, Jack had sold the house they shared, packed what little he needed into his old Ford pickup truck, and driven back to Riverton, the small Missouri town where he was born. He bought a small house on the edge of town. He kept a garden he rarely tended. He walked to Rusty's bar most afternoons, ordered 1 cup of coffee, sat in the corner, and watched the hours pass. He didn't talk much. He didn't need to. The only soul in this world he spoke to every single day was the dog at his feet. Rex was a retired military working dog, a German shepherd who had served alongside Jack during his second tour overseas. Rex had been trained to detect explosives, to track, to protect. He had saved the lives of men who never even knew he was there. And one afternoon, in a narrow street in Kandahar, when an IED detonated and shrapnel tore through Jack's leg and left him bleeding in the dust, unable to move, it was Rex who had dragged him, physically dragged him, behind cover and barked until help arrived. They had both come home with scars. They had both survived things that should have broken them. And now, 7 years later, they sat together in the corner of Rusty's bar in Riverton, Missouri, two old soldiers, watching the world move on without them, carrying their wounds quietly, asking nothing from anyone, until a little girl walked through that door. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Jack asked. His voice was low, careful, the way you speak when you don't want to startle something fragile. "Emma," she whispered. She was shaking. Her small hands were clenched together in front of her like she was trying to hold herself in one piece. Jack leaned forward slowly, elbows on his knees, bringing himself down to her level. He noticed her eyes first, dark brown, wide, full of something no child that age should ever have to carry. Then he noticed her neck, just above the collar of that oversized red jacket. Bruises, dark purple at the edges, yellowing in the center, which meant they weren't from today. These were days old. And alongside them, newer marks, darker, fresh. Jack's jaw tightened. Something moved through him, slow and deep, and very, very still. The kind of stillness that comes not from peace, but from a man forcing himself to stay calm when every instinct inside him is screaming. Rex rose from the floor without a sound. He stepped forward and placed his large, warm head directly against Emma's trembling hands, not pushing, not startling her, just being there. A steady, gentle, enormous presence that said, without a single word, "You are safe now." Emma looked down at Rex, and for just one moment, the shaking slowed. "Who did this to you?" Jack asked quietly. Emma's lip trembled. She pulled the collar of her jacket down slightly, not all the way, just enough, and Jack saw what she needed him to see. "Mom says we have to stay quiet," she whispered. Her voice broke on the last word. "She always says stay quiet, but last night he hurt her real bad. She couldn't get up this morning. She couldn't make breakfast. She couldn't—" Emma stopped. She swallowed hard. "She was just lying there." Jack closed his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. In the darkness behind those closed eyes, another face flashed through his memory. A boy, an Afghan boy, maybe 8 years old, lying in the rubble of a collapsed building in a village outside Kandahar. Jack had found him during a patrol. The boy had been silent too, taught to be silent, taught that staying quiet was how you survived. Jack had held that boy's hand in the dust while the medics worked, and he had promised him in broken Dari, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay." And the boy had looked up at him with those dark, trusting eyes and believed him. That boy had not been okay. Jack had carried that failure in his chest every single day for 11 years. He opened his eyes. Emma was still standing there, still trembling, still waiting. "Where is your mom right now?" he asked. "Blue trailer, number 17, in the park off Miller Road." She looked up at him. "He gets home at 5 o'clock. Jack glanced at the clock above the bar. 2:18 p.m. He looked back at Emma. He reached out slowly and placed one large, scarred hand gently over both of her small, clenched ones. "Emma," he said softly, "I need you to hear me. What you just did, walking in here, asking for help, that is the bravest thing a person can do. Do you understand me?" She shook her head. "I was scared." "I know you were," he said. "But here's what I learned a long time ago. Brave doesn't mean you're not scared. Brave means you were terrified and you moved anyway." He paused. "You moved anyway, Emma. That makes you one of the bravest people I've ever met." The little girl looked at him for a long, searching moment. Then she looked down at Rex. Rex looked back up at her with those calm, amber eyes, steady and warm and completely certain, and his tail moved once, slowly, like a promise. Emma reached out and touched the top of his head with one small hand. And Jack Thompson stood up. He drove his old Ford pickup to the trailer park off Miller Road with Emma in the passenger seat and Rex sitting tall in the back, watching the road through the rear window like a soldier on patrol. Jack didn't speak much on the drive, neither did Emma, but she had stopped shaking, and that was enough for now. The trailer park was a row of small homes sitting close together under bare November trees. Some had window boxes with dead flowers still in them, some had children's toys in the yard. Number 17 sat near the end of the row, a faded blue trailer with a broken porch light and curtains drawn closed in the middle of the afternoon. Jack knocked twice, gently. No answer. He tried the handle. The door was unlocked. The smell hit him before his eyes adjusted to the dimness inside. Stale cigarettes, cheap beer, and underneath it all, something else. Something Jack recognized from years of walking through places where fear had soaked itself into the walls. That particular smell of a home where someone has been afraid for a very long time. A woman lay on the couch, mid-30s, dark hair spread across a pillow that had seen better days. Her eyes were half open, her breathing was shallow and uneven. A bruise covered the left side of her face from her cheekbone down to her jaw. Her left arm was wrapped against her body at an angle that told Jack what he needed to know. Broken ribs, at least 2, maybe 3. Emma ran to her mother's side. "Mama, Mama, I brought help! I brought the man with the dog!" The woman, Lisa, turned her head slowly. Her eyes found Jack standing in the doorway. There was fear there first. Always fear first. That's what years of this does to a person. "It's all right," Jack said quietly. He didn't step further inside. He let her see him, let her decide. "My name's Jack. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help." Lisa looked at Emma. Emma nodded, and Lisa closed her eyes and let out a breath that seemed to carry years of weight inside it. Jack called the one person he trusted, an old army buddy named Dale Mercer, who had come home from the same war and gone into law enforcement 2 counties over. A man who understood what it meant to protect people who had no one else protecting them. But when Jack told Lisa that Dale was coming, that they could get her somewhere safe, that this could stop today, Lisa grabbed his arm with what little strength she had. "He has friends," she whispered. "On the local force. If I report it here, they'll tell him. He'll find us. He always finds us." Her eyes filled. "I've tried before." Jack sat with that for a moment. He understood it. He had seen it before, not just in war zones, but in the quiet corners of small-town America, where power protected the wrong people and the vulnerable learned that silence was safer than speaking. It was a different kind of battlefield, but the casualties were just as real. "Lisa," he said, "Dale isn't local. He answers to a different department, different county, different chain of command. He's a good man. I'd trust him with my life. I have trusted him with my life." He paused. "I need you to trust me with yours." Lisa looked at her daughter. Emma took her mother's hand and held it with both of hers. Lisa closed her eyes again. A single tear ran down the undamaged side of her face. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." At 5:57 in the afternoon, a rusted white pickup truck turned into the trailer park and rolled slowly toward number 17. Jack was standing on the porch. Rex was sitting at his left side, still, straight, and absolutely silent. Every muscle in that great dog's body was focused and ready, but he didn't growl, didn't bark. He simply existed with the particular, undeniable authority of a creature that has been trained for exactly this kind of moment. The truck stopped. Kevin Dalton stepped out. 6 feet 2 inches of simmering, half-drunk anger wrapped in a flannel shirt. He was the kind of man who had learned early that the world bent around his moods, that people moved out of his way, that women stayed quiet, that nobody ever stood on his porch and looked him in the eye. He stopped dead when he saw Jack, looked him up and down, looked at Rex. "Who the hell are you?" he said. His voice was loud, meant to fill space, meant to intimidate. Jack didn't move a single inch. "My name is Jack Thompson," he said. His voice was quiet, completely level. "United States Army, retired. 2 tours in Afghanistan." He paused. "And you're done hurting them." Kevin laughed, the kind of laugh that's made entirely of contempt. He took a step toward the porch. Rex stood up. He didn't lunge, he didn't bark. He simply rose to his full height and fixed his amber eyes on Kevin Dalton with an expression that communicated, with absolute bone-level clarity, that this was the precise moment to reconsider. Kevin stopped laughing. Jack took 1 step forward. "I've met men like you before," he said quietly, not with anger, almost with sadness. On the other side of the world, in places where nobody was watching, men who used their size and their fear and their fists on people who had nothing left to fight back with. He held Kevin's eyes. Every single one of them believed nobody would ever stand up to them. They were wrong, and so were you. Kevin's hand moved toward his belt. Rex's growl came then, low and rolling and ancient, the sound of something that has seen real danger and is not impressed by imitation. Kevin went completely still. 2 sheriff's department vehicles from the next county rolled quietly into the trailer park. Dale Mercer stepped out first, badge on his chest, handcuffs in his hand, and a file folder, because Jack had made 1 more phone call on the drive over, and what he had uncovered was a prior assault charge, a violation of a restraining order from 3 years ago, and an outstanding warrant that Kevin Dalton had somehow avoided long enough. Not anymore. As they walked Kevin to the car, he looked back once at the trailer with an expression that was meant to be threatening. Jack stepped directly into his line of sight, and Kevin Dalton looked away first. The door to the trailer opened quietly behind Jack. He turned around. Emma stood in the doorway in her oversized red jacket, her hand resting on Rex's back. She looked at the police car. She watched them put Kevin inside it. She watched the door close. She looked up at Jack. "Is it really over?" she asked. Her voice was so small, so careful, like she had asked this question before, in her own heart, in the dark, and had stopped believing the answer could ever be yes. Jack looked down at her. His throat tightened in a way he hadn't felt in years. "Yes," he said. His voice was rough at the edges. "It's over, Emma. I promise you. It's over." Rex leaned his great head softly against the little girl's side, and Emma wrapped both arms around that dog's neck and buried her face in his fur, and finally, let herself cry without being afraid of who might hear. Lisa and Emma moved into a small apartment on the other side of Riverton 2 weeks later. It wasn't much: 2 bedrooms, thin walls, a radiator that clanged through the night, but it was theirs, and it was safe. And for the first time in years, Lisa left the curtains open during the day. Jack checked on them every week. He brought groceries sometimes, helped fix a leaking faucet, sat at their small kitchen table and drank coffee and said very little, because he had learned long ago that sometimes presence matters more than words. Rex became Emma's shadow. Every morning he walked her to the bus stop at the end of the block. Every afternoon he was sitting on the front step when she came home, ears forward, tail moving, like he had been counting the minutes. On the evenings when Emma did her homework at the kitchen table, Rex lay under her chair with his chin on her feet, and she did her homework better, and she slept through the night, and slowly, the light began to return to her eyes. Months passed, then a year. Then the bruises were only memories, and the memories began to lose their power, and laughter, real laughter, the kind that starts in the belly, came back to that small apartment and stayed. On Christmas Eve of that year, Emma knocked on Jack's door. She was wearing a green sweater, and her hair was brushed and her eyes were bright. She held a wrapped package in both hands. Jack opened it at his kitchen table while Emma watched him with her hands folded under her chin. Inside was a framed photograph. The four of them, Jack, Lisa, Emma, and Rex, standing in front of the apartment in the thin winter sunlight. Somebody had taken it weeks earlier without Jack realizing. Lisa was smiling, Emma was laughing at something, Rex was sitting perfectly straight and dignified as only Rex could. And Jack was looking down at all of them with an expression on his face that he didn't even know he was capable of anymore. He looked like a man who had found his way back. Underneath the photograph, in careful, earnest 7-year-old handwriting, "Thank you for answering when I asked for help." Jack set the photograph down on the table. He turned away for a moment, looked out the dark window at the Christmas lights on the house across the street. His shoulders moved once, just once. Old soldiers don't cry easily. The weight of everything they've carried, the wars, the losses, the years of silence, it presses all that down deep, buries it under duty and discipline and the habit of being strong. But that night, in his quiet kitchen in Riverton, Missouri, with a little girl sitting across his table and a dog warm against his leg and a photograph of something that looked almost like a family sitting in his hands, Jack Thompson cried, and it felt like something long frozen beginning, at last, to thaw. Emma grew up. She was a serious student and a kind one. She remembered things. The way kindness felt when you had been starved of it, the way one person standing up could change everything, the way a dog's steady warmth against your hands could make the shaking stop. She went to college, studied social work, came back to Missouri and took a position as a counselor at a domestic violence resource center in a town 30 miles from Riverton. She was 26 years old when a young woman walked into her office one Tuesday morning holding the hand of a small boy, maybe 6 years old, with wide, frightened eyes and a too quiet way about him that Emma recognized the way you recognize your own reflection. The woman looked at Emma, and her voice broke before she even finished her first sentence. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. Emma came around from behind her desk and knelt down in front of the little boy. She looked at him the way Jack had once looked at her. Directly, gently, without pity, without flinching. "You came to exactly the right place," she said. "Both of you. Because once, a long time ago, she had too." Jack is older now. His hair is fully silver, and his knee aches worse in the cold, and he moves a little slower down the sidewalk each morning. Rex moves slower too. His muzzle has gone gray, and he doesn't jump anymore, just rises carefully and walks with the steady dignity of an elder statesman who has earned every gray hair. But every morning without fail, they walk. Down the same streets, past the same houses, past the school where the children come tumbling out at 3:15 with their backpacks and their noise and their beautiful, careless joy. And sometimes, on certain afternoons, a woman stands on the steps of the nonprofit center she now runs on the edge of town. Dark hair, warm eyes, a calm about her that came from surviving something and choosing, consciously, deliberately every single day to use that survival for something good. She sees the old man and his old dog coming down the block. She raises her hand, a salute, simple, sincere. Jack stops walking. He straightens his shoulders, just slightly, just enough, and he salutes back. No words needed. No words in any language ever built could carry what passes between them in that moment. Real courage isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect conditions or the guarantee that everything will work out fine. Real courage is a 7-year-old girl in an oversized red jacket walking into a room full of strangers and whispering, "Please help," to the one man who looked like he might understand what it meant to have carried something heavy for a very long time. Real courage is a broken man putting down his cold coffee and standing up. The strongest warriors in this world are not always the ones on the battlefield. Sometimes they are the ones who stand quietly between a child and danger. Sometimes they are the ones who show up week after week with groceries and a dog and nothing to prove. Sometimes they are the ones who grow up in the shadow of fear and choose, despite everything, to become someone else's safe place. And sometimes courage is simply this: answering when someone asks for help. Every time, without exception, no matter the cost. If this story moved something in you, if you believe that no child should ever be told to stay quiet, if you believe that one person standing up can change the entire direction of a life, then share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe to Jack and Rex Tales, because every single week we come back to this corner together to remember what really matters: loyalty, courage, kindness, the quiet heroism of ordinary people doing extraordinary things for one another. Real courage still exists in this world. Jack and Rex are proof of that, and so are you. We'll see you next time.